Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And, you know, we're doing a few episodes here leading up to where we're going to talk about this documentary called After Truth. And we mentioned it, I think, last time. But in advance of that, we want to talk about disinformation and the impact of disinformation and how it has a very serious impact on truth. And so there were a few examples we're going to share today and discuss. And I'll tell you, Bill, it's fascinating to me still, even though, you know, I've been, engaged with you in these episodes for a long time and working with you for a long time. I don't know why it still surprises me sometimes that this information can really get more attention than truth.
It has an impact on the brain, the body. It's amazing how if you sow the seeds of doubt, if you water those seeds of doubt, water the seeds of skepticism, water the emotions of helplessness, create the molecules of confusion inside a person, it works to knock the human being off the track. Now, the reason why Americans have a particular sensitivity to it is that one of the things that we were taught in Parenting 101, many parents divert the child. The child's upset, divert them. How do you divert them? Put a shiny object in front of them. Stick a pacifier in their mouth. Don't let them, express their emotion fully. Meanwhile, on this show, what we're interested in is finding out what is the need behind the emotion and face the issue right then and there. Why is that child crying? The child cries because they want to get out of the stroller. They want to get out of the thing. They want and desiring a need for connection. And it doesn't mean it's inconvenient for the parent, although it might be in that moment. It's the emotion is trying to communicate, I'm upset, I need to deal with it. Now, if you don't, or young adults or children that don't get to express their emotions, when they grow up, they just make the tantrums bigger. And we're regrettably experiencing a little bit of that in politics right now. I want to prove something, and therefore I'm throwing a tantrum, and I happen to have some money in my pocket, and I'm going to make some noise.
Boy, I'll tell you.
We have some examples.
Boy, when you put it like that, it makes it seem so childish, doesn't it? Right. Well, so I do have an example, and people who paid attention to details of the news after the election, this may sound familiar, but after the election, as the Republicans and the Trump campaign are saying, hey, there's widespread voter fraud, they're calling for it, but they weren't putting up any significant evidence of it. At one point, the Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who is a Republican, he announced that he would pay up to a $1 million reward for anyone who could produce proof of fraud. So
Right.
the irony of this, which of course this is the truth part of it, which didn't, people didn't pay attention to.
Right.
They paid attention to the emotion and the announcement of the reward for proof of fraud. Interestingly, on its face, it suggests, hey, we, the Republican leadership, don't have evidence of fraud. We're asking for the general public's help in finding it and pointing it out. But that's really not what people, paid attention to.
No, they didn't.
I mean, they're not paying attention to, hey, we, the Republican Party, can't back up this talking point that there's widespread voter fraud, so I'll pay you to help. It's not really, that's not what people paid attention to. But they said, oh my gosh, there's voter fraud. Oh my gosh, there's so much voter fraud that they're willing to pay all this money for it. I don't know how people square that circle, but they did. And the interesting thing that happened is, to date, the only voter fraud that's been identified, which now there is someone saying, hey, Dan Patrick, you need to pay up that $1 million. And in
Right.
fact, there were like more than one incident, so they're asking him to pay up $3 million, is the Pennsylvania lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania. His name is Fetterman.
Yes.
He found, they in Pennsylvania found voter fraud of Trump supporters who voted on behalf of dead relatives.
Right.
And so he's saying, hey, you need to pay up because we found voter fraud. Now, of course, that is humorous because, of course, the Republicans are expecting the fraud to be found on people that supported Biden, and here they find voter fraud for people supporting Trump. But it's very interesting. The lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania knows that it's humorous, obviously, and he said in a quote to the media that he knows that that Fetterman's probably never, not Fetterman, sorry, that Dan Patrick's never going to pay this reward, but he's trying to shine a light on the fact that there really was no voter fraud to begin with, because even these incidents are very small and isolated. It's not like a widespread systemic thing.
Right.
And so he's trying to shine a light on that. And then, it's humorous, but it's serious at the same time. But unfortunately, the truth of this, the reality that there's not much voter fraud, that, hey, there's at least as much voter fraud that occurs in small amounts from Republicans as Democrats. There probably is in small ways, but it's not this major systemic thing. But that truth never gets the attention. It's the announcement of there is so much voter fraud. We just have to go find it, right? It's the announcement.
The announcement makes the difference. The announcements move the molecules of emotion. The impact of communication, which is what we kind of circle around on this show, is that if you want to get somebody to change from the feeling of confidence to the feeling of doubt, disinformation has to land. And even disinformation followed by a retraction also creates doubt and confusion. Tucker Carlson actually did one of these. He went in and did a show about a woman that voted, about a husband that voted that was dead, only to find out that the vote was cast by his wife, who her and the naming convention on the ballot was that she was Mrs.
Whatever
the
his
guy's
name is,
right?
yeah.
Now he got on air and he did the retraction, but he didn't clean it up fully and say, I'm following this small little crumb down this rabbit hole, but my job is all about disinformation, or it's all about creating doubt and skepticism. If I create doubt and skepticism, You as a viewer will follow me and my ratings stay high. I can prove that I am a person of integrity because I'm doing a retraction. But really, no, you're exploding a something and make it disproportional. You're not providing truth. You're providing entertainment too in the political sphere in order to get 1 million viewers, 2 million viewers, 3 million viewers. You want people to follow your network because that's your job, is to get eyeballs. Your job is not a function of delivering truth.
And disinformation, is so easy to spread because they tap into people's belief biases with disinformation, and people latch onto it. Oh, that must be true, and there's so many examples of this. And I remember back in the first Gulf War with Saddam Hussein. Actually, not the first Gulf War, it was the second one, where Saddam Hussein was supposed to have all these mobile bioweapons labs and weapons of mass destruction and all these things. And a colleague of mine that I worked with at the time, we're having a discussion about it. It's like, yeah, but we're going to war and we're assuming that he has this stuff. We don't really have evidence. And he says to me, oh, they'll find it. They'll find the weapons of mass destruction. They'll find the mobile weapons labs. He wanted it to be.
He wanted it to be. And I mean, Tucker Carlson has great power. His average, show watch is 4.5 million people watch his show. 4.5 million people listen to him and are looking for truth to be put in a perspective that they believe sides with that point of view. And that's an average audience. That's not like, I think, there's it's unsettling because the challenge is our body wants to reinforce the beliefs it has. It doesn't want to question the beliefs. We're not actively looking for truth. Our brain is actually actively looking for belief reinforcement, which is really unsettling if we're looking for belief reinforcement, because how logic and beliefs are at odds with each other. Truth does not stand up to the emotions of doubt and skepticism. It shrinks, when the feeling of doubt and skepticism comes up. Truth and trust become the casualties.
Well, that really explains a lot about why President Trump was so adamant that the Ukraine announce an investigation into the Bidens, doesn't it?
That's right. I'm interested in creating a casualty for truth and trust in Joe Biden. I'm not trusting that. And of course, Barr on the way out, yeah, we're canceling the investigation into Hunter Biden.
Did he cancel that, or I thought he was not willing to appoint a special counsel? I mean, this is an investigation. Apparently, it's been going on for a couple of years. Right. Trump wanted him to assign a special counsel and try to make it as big as like the Mueller investigation into Russian, interference in the 2016 election. And even Barr said, yeah, there's not that much there that's worth appointing a special counsel for, right?
He slow walked it.
Barr and in a rare moment of integrity for the Attorney General, he did not let the news of this investigation come out before the election, because if he had, it kind of would have been a lot like if Ukraine had announced an investigation into the Bidens. Just to announce ahead of the election that there's an investigation into Hunter Biden going on at the Justice Department and the FBI, that probably would have done a lot of damage to Joe Biden's,
It would have
vote count.
swung votes in swing states. Wisconsin might have been that way. Michigan might have been that way, because we're wired to trust the legal system. We're wired to trust the judge. We're wired to trust the system, that the law is going to be applied equally. We're trusting that. So people that are in those positions most certainly have earned them, haven't they? Most certainly have had experience in that, haven't they? And when I heard that Bill Barr didn't try any cases or anything like that, I was going like, he didn't go in front of the Supreme Court. He's never tried a case. He's never really worked on the side of prosecution. I was going like, oh my gosh, he doesn't really actually fully know the levers that you're allowed to pull and the ones that you're not. And he's just a messenger in the position. He's not a expert or a person in the, he's got the law degree, but it's really, really unsettling to, what that experience is, and there's, obviously there's been people that have called for, we're going to, get rid of his law degree or retract his law degree or disbar him.
And there's definitely been some calls to do that. I think especially because of some of the more controversial things that he's been a part of, with how he tried to frame the Mueller report before it actually came out, and all that had to do with really what we're talking about. Think about Bill Barr coming out and giving that press conference with his assessment of the Mueller report. That was disinformation. Right. He was trying to essentially preemptively kill the impact of the Mueller report before it came out and say, hey, there's no there.
And it worked. It worked worked to create doubt and skepticism. They played doubt and skepticism over the air to the obviously the 4.5 million people that watch Tucker Carlson, and then just bounce to Hannity and bounce to the other shows. The disinformation. Now, the need for news to create emotion inside the listener is problematic, because news is supposed to be fact-based. So there is a gap between when something is being reported on or trying to be discovered, and then when the fact comes in. Once the fact comes in, the dopamine and the molecules of emotion are going to drop inside the listener. Oh, they figured this one out. So the viewership has got to go down, or I'm not going to listen to that issue because the fact came in. But one of the things that has happened in cable news is that they stretch the playtime and create a bunch of doubt and skepticism before the fact lands. And even if the fact does land, they'll say, well, this is what has been reported on up to this time. Rudy Giuliani is the one that is going like, you're stretching it. You haven't won a case anywhere in any environment. There's no facts. And you keep pretending that there is, and there's a way to show this. Oh yeah, there's rampant. He has sold, this process, and sold his viewership and sold his expertise as a person that promotes that he knows something other people don't know. And that's how you purchase truth.
And really, it's, I want to be careful here to um, really honor all the vast majority of journalists with integrity in our country that do care about the truth and will wait and not release a story until they vet the truth and know if there are facts behind it. Unfortunately, those people that are good stewards of facts and the
Right.
truth do not get as much attention as what's happened in our, especially major media these days, is there's the addition of all these opinion shows and opinion hosts. And I'm talking about the Hannitys, the Tucker Carlsons of the world.
Right.
And I think we have to, to be fair, we have to lump maybe people like Rachel Maddow and certain other people into that on the other side. Now, not that there isn't truth that's reported on a lot of those shows, but there's also an awful lot of speculation and opinion, and they can all tend to propagate a story that has no basis in fact, some more than others. But it's
Yes.
like you say, there's almost like this smoke screen of all this other information, and when the fact lands, it doesn't land very well. It's sort of,
Yeah.
it's obscured. Um, and that people don't realize that they're listening to opinion, and that opinion is feeding into their belief biases and
Yeah.
allows the disinformation to grow.
It allows it to grow. It allows the person's belief to sit there and go like, I have a form of certainty that what Tucker Carlson said about War on Christmas is true because, he was so impassioned about it and he makes some sense. The person just needs to make some sense. The announcement's what's needed. The announcement says, yeah, it makes sense that, Hunter Biden, worked for the president and, and got this deal. If he wasn't the vice president's son, he wouldn't have got on the board of this thing. And he took a paycheck for it because they thought of him as a person that, they would like as a part of their marketing spin for the oil company or the gas company to have him on the board, because then they would attract investors because they have a big name person, and clearly the U.S. government is going to the what do you call it, it looks good. All it's got to do is look good. So
It gives them credibility as a company that they would have
right.
somebody like that on their board. It was all about optics. And honestly, there's nothing illegal about that. And I guarantee you this happens all the time with Trump's children too. I mean, and a lot of wealthy people or people in position of power, their children, their brothers, whatever, get hired and asked to be on boards because they want to be able to say, I have somebody close to the president, or I have somebody close to this person on my board. Therefore, that makes people feel more confident about giving them business or investing in them or whatever it is that their goal is.
If Barack Obama came on this show with us to talk about the purchasing of truth, wouldn't this show's ratings go up?
Oh,
Because
it's skyrocket. Yeah.
it skyrockets, right? Wouldn't it if any notable senator or person of interest or celebrity shows up, the show would, it's because we're in association with. Now, if we're doing the same thing with storytelling and we're spinning a tale to try to have our viewers really pay attention to our point of view and not be ranters, because there's a lot of folks that rant and you get views like that. Oh, look at how angry he is. Well, I wish I could get as angry about something as Alex Jones does. I mean, it's, he's mad about something. And therefore he's committed to what he knows as a belief. Boy, I'd like to have that kind of certainty. I'll listen to him. And that's the hard part about this. When we purchase truth and we looked at truth, we also have to have a spoonful of humility that it doesn't really go fully our way. We need to be able to admit things we don't know, that we're not a person that's at the top of things. And that's one of the biggest problems that Trump had in government. He would have a second term if he would have turned over the entire healthcare pandemic over to people that were doctors and didn't try to make it a eyeball grab, make it a I'm caring for the nation. I'm letting the experts run this show. Listen, I am not an expert in medicine. Instead, he goes, I get this stuff. I'm really smart. I have, my dad or uncle
Yeah,
was an
some uncle, I
MIT,
think. Yeah, uncle.
it's like, dude, give it up to the experts and stop saying things that are not factually accurate. Read off a script. He goes like, no, I ain't reading off a script. What makes my show, The Apprentice, the famous thing is I would say something wacky and they would cut it and fix it in post. And that's what they did. He would say something wacky and they'd fix it in post. So anyway, this has been interesting. So it's really important to follow this thread of misinformation and let's keep focusing on it, because when you put a spotlight and when you ask for truth, you're able to proportionalize the things that other people are saying. So on a scale of 1 to 10, when Tucker Carlson says there's voter fraud, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 1 officially. It's not a 0, it's a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's not enough to overturn the election. There's all these redundant systems in place. So that vast fraud does not slip through. That's my current belief. Now, you and I might be sitting on the other end of the egg by just a new truth that shows up and a new evidence shows up. But don't you think they would have found it by now? Could it possibly be the inept, corrupt Democrats would have made this mistake by now? It's not like they're, that they're holding the entire intellect on that side of the fence either. They've got, people that are, swinging ideas and points of view on their side that are like, yeah, I don't know about that one. I'm not sure how that one's going to work. And this is where truth becomes something that we get to talk about openly and use our powers of curiosity and mindfulness to go like, let's figure this one out. Let's research this a little bit. Let's stay curious. Let's increase our awareness about where the truth is and let truth find us instead of trying to pretend that we have it, because it's a process.
It is a process, and you know we need to raise awareness in people. That's long term. People need to have awareness that the difference between something that makes them feel better emotionally and
Right.
something that's actually true, and they are often not in alignment.
That's right. That's right. That's a big piece. All right. Well, more to come on this disinformation, Tom. I think that there's a lot here to really take a look, and the impact on our physiology is something we got to watch and make sure that we're checking our beliefs at the door and not necessarily going like, oh yeah, this is a reinforcing things, and kind of look at this and then really be in a place of staring it down a little bit.
Okay, sounds good, Bill.
All
Thanks
right,
so
more to
much.
come. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.